Good afternoon, everybody. Good. My name is Steve Bovo. I am currently a county commissioner representing District 13. That area is Hialeah, Miami Lakes, and the unincorporated area of Northwest Dade. I've had the pleasure of serving on the Board of County Commission now for 8 years. Came on board actually in a turbulent time of the county when we were going through a recall of a mayor and a sitting commissioner, and have basically occupied that seat now for the last 2 election cycles. I've had the pleasure of serving on 2 different occasions as the chair of the Transportation Committee, and as of last year, I had the honor of being able to be the chairman of the board of County Commission. I see Miami-Dade County really at a crossroad on what comes in 2020. We are a community that many people have made a decision that they want to come and live here. There's no denying that Miami-Dade County will make the top 20 list virtually on everybody's must-do. But there are challenges that we have here in Miami-Dade County. We want to sustain ourselves long-term. Transportation has become the topic of conversation, perhaps, in everybody's home. The effect on our quality of life by being in gridlock and lack of options, I think, can be an inhibitor in the future of us being able to draw more businesses and diversify our business portfolio here in South Florida. There's a secondary issue that is tied directly, I believe, to the transportation issue or lack thereof, which is our housing issues. It is becoming impossible for young professionals to stay here in South Florida. My family is already a direct casualty of that. I have a son who's living in New York and probably will never live in South Florida. And it has probably more to do with his profession, but absolutely it also has to do a lot with the ability to be able to rent home. We have residents in Miami-Dade County today renting out garages and perhaps spare bedrooms in their homes for folks that are using it to live and not a transient housing situation. And that is very problematic in our community. But I think both of those issues can work together to solve each other at the same time that we need to address the issues of our environment in our community. Point frank and very honestly, if we don't have a beach that is healthy, if we don't have Everglades that are healthy, those 2 economic engines without support doom South Florida. Now, my friends, I think all those issues can be worked together, and I think they should be worked together on the sphere of economic development, and we can accomplish that. Now, to the point of you all gathered here today, and I appreciate all the county employees that are here. When we on the County Commission and the board talk about delivering excellence every day, we rely on you to do it. And we congratulate you on the excellent work that you provide on a day-to-day basis for the residents of Miami-Dade County. And I think the next mayor needs to be able to evaluate the balance of providing that excellent service and balancing the needs of the taxpayers in Miami-Dade County. And I believe there's a common interest there on both sides to deliver excellent service and do it in a way that it's right and fair for the employees of Miami-Dade County. I thank all of you for the opportunity to speak to you today, and I look forward to the question and answer portion. Thank you.
Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you. I'm Daniella, Levine Cava. I'm County Commissioner, and I'm the newest kid on this stage in politics. 5 years ago, we worked together and we made history. Thank you. Thank you. Many of you were there with me on the front lines. There are 3 words: vision, integrity, results, that guided my campaign, and they have been the touchstones for my 5 years in office. 5 years ago, when I was encouraged to run by many in labor, you were by my side, and that's what made it possible for me to take that step and step out. So I credit you with helping us to defy the odds, defeat an incumbent, and we won. We won. And now, running for mayor, I will be guided by the very same principles vision, integrity, and results. I have the same passion and the same conviction. My entire life's work has been about creating opportunities, about being at the table, because so many are left out and left behind. 20 years ago, I had the great good fortune to meet a young labor organizer, Fred Frost, sitting right there, and we talked about bringing a living wage to Miami-Dade County. And he asked me to help lead the effort. We created a community coalition for a living wage. We were the first in the southeastern United States, the 20th in the nation, and we got it done. But 20 years later, affordability is even farther from reach for so many. I have talked with so many of you. You've shared your struggles, and it breaks my heart. When I go through the airport, I'm seeing all the working people, and I'm thinking about the fact that they're working 2 and 3 jobs, and they don't have adequate health care benefits. I had the opportunity this week to meet with security guards, and we're launching together the Paid Sick campaign because so many of them don't have access to basic health care. I was proud to join my colleagues. We expanded the living wage at the airport for concessionaires and their subcontractors. Labor is a critical partner with government. In 2014 and 2018, you were there for me, and I will always be with you. LIUNA was by my side in that campaign, 2014. So many in the orange shirts came down and walked with me and spent a whole month, some of them dedicated to this campaign. For some, it's about the contracts. It's about the legislation. But for me, it's always about you. It's always about the people. And I am running for mayor to make sure that you don't just have a seat at the table, but that you're at the head of the table with me. That is how I roll, and that is how I'll always roll. Thank you very much.
Good afternoon. And thank you very much for being here. First, I want to give all praises and honor to God for the countless blessings bestowed upon me. And it is because of His goodness that I stand before you today. And I want to say thank you to the AFL-CIO and your labor partners for your remarkable leadership and hard work on behalf of working families. My name is Monestime, and I want to become the next mayor of Miami-Dade County. 39 years ago, I landed here in Miami-Dade County in a small rickety boat with a couple of dozen of people, none of whom my family. I was 17 years old. I didn't speak a word of English. I was alone and didn't know a soul in this country except for a sister who arrived 3 months prior. To start there and end up here today is only possible in America. This country and this county were my only hope and my only chance of finding a better life. My first job was mopping floors at Krispy Kreme Donut for $3.55 an hour. I went on to mow lawns, wash dishes, and drive a taxi, all while getting an undergrad degree, and later becoming a real estate agent and a school teacher here in Miami-Dade County. None of this was easy, just like nothing is easy for you. But I didn't believe that it was supposed to be easy. All that I know, this is America where all dreams are possible. Today, I'm privileged to represent my district and more than 2.8 million people as a county commissioner. My life has been the American dream, and my life's work has been ensuring that the dream endures for you, for your children, and for my children. Many of you know me, and have heard me say this before. I believe the people of Miami-Dade County, with such a diverse population and so many immigrants, treasure freedom and opportunity as dearly as anyone else in the United States of America. Serving as your county commissioner and your county chairman in 2016 and 17 was a great honor and responsibility. Together, we achieved many things. Among them, we established the Chairman for Prosperity initiative that delivered on so many fronts. We became the first county in the state of Florida to bend the box. We passed anti-discrimination protection for our LGBTQ community. And we've created new programs for affordable housing, for home ownership. I spent my entire public career championing those issues that affect most people, most of us, because I understand the challenge of families. And I want to run for mayor of Miami-Dade County, and I want to become your next mayor, because I want to demonstrate and show that the American dream is possible for all of us. We need fair wages. We need a mass transit that help us connect from our home to our work. And we need to partner with our school system, our universities, our colleges, and to invest in building a more competitive workforce and build the economy of Miami-Dade County where we all can continue to live, work, and prosper together. To accomplish that, we need new leadership, and that's what I want to bring to the table. Thank you so very much.
Jeff, thank you very much, and Mark, really appreciate this opportunity to be here today and to each of you. Some of you may recall the story. My father was a member of Local 355. Any 355ers here? And one of the fond memories that I have growing up was on Saturday mornings going to roll call with my father. The union headquarters at the time used to be over by the Miami Design District. And we would hope and pray that my father would get what conventions or different events, and they had the banquets, there would be a whole host of ways up, again, hoping and praying that their number would be called. That's how I grew up. My mother, her first job in this country was as a house in the different hotels at Miami Beach. And then she went on to work in Hialeah in La Factorias.
I don't know if you all remember La Factoria in Hialeah, when the seamstresses would work in the textile industry. Unfortunately, those jobs have left Miami-Dade County for the most part. But growing up in a working class family like that, a union family, really taught me some very basic lessons. It taught me about honesty, it taught me about hard work, and it taught me about sacrifice. And those are the very principles that have guided me throughout my life as a young lawyer. When I first started practicing law, it guided me through my public service career for 17 years. And that's why I advocated for things like our homeless plan, which today is still a model for the nation. I worked hard to make sure we had a dedicated funding source for public transportation. Let me repeat that. A dedicated funding source for public transportation. As mayor, I took on the NRA, and we closed the gun show loophole in Miami-Dade County and sued gun manufacturers because we knew there were safer ways of manufacturing guns. We expanded the Human Rights Ordinance to ban discrimination based on sexual orientation. And I fought for public education, in fact, to expand education when I co-authored the Universal Pre-Kindergarten Amendment, which today provides universal pre-kindergarten to hundreds and hundreds of thousands of children in this state. Those are the principles that I believe in. And in the private sector, those principles have continued. What could have been a crippling financial situation for me and my family during the recession, we turned that around, and over the years have offered thousands of families in this community with affordable, decent housing. By the way, without government assistance. Even today, we still provide housing to hundreds of families. Affordable housing in this community is part of our family business. So ladies and gentlemen, those are the combination of experiences, both in the public and private sector, that I hope to offer you as we tackle these immense challenges that we face in Miami-Dade County. But I do so at a stage in my career where I'm not doing this because I need a government job. I don't need to do this. I'm doing this because I want to do this. I love Miami-Dade County. I've lived here all of my life, and that's why I'm willing to present myself again as mayor of Miami-Dade County. Thank you very much.
I saw that Mayor Pinellas took off his jacket. I figured it's probably a good idea, so imitated him on that. I also saw that he stepped away from the microphone and the mic didn't work over there. I'm not going to imitate that. I want to shout out the hotel workers, Wendy always says, Suarez seems to understand that we spend 12 hours to get paid 7, because it takes 2 hours in each direction if you go from Florida City all the way to Miami Beach, and an hour is used up of your salary either with tolls for roads that were built 30 years ago, paid for with taxes 30 years ago. We're getting hit with them now. God knows why. Or a public transit system, as Commissioner Bovo says, that is very ineffective. And we'll be talking about that through the campaign. I also want to thank Mark for something he said during one of the commission meetings. We are fighting it out. You remember the 5%? Okay, all of a sudden the county decided that they were going to take 5% of your entire salary or your entire compensation to pay for health care. One of the local newspapers, a weekly, said that, well, if they contribute 5% of their health care premiums, that's not so bad. That wasn't what was going on. I had to call the editor, the publisher, and I said, it's not that they're paying 5% and the county's paying 95%. The county's taking 5% of their salaries to pay all of their health care. And so we had to struggle. And in one of those hearings, Mark got up there and he said something I admire about Xavier Suarez. He obviously has a bunch of degrees from very good schools and so on. He could be making a lot of money. Well, when I was mayor of the city of Miami, I made $5,000 a year. Okay? Then I became county commissioner, and they gave me a 20% raise. I make $6,000 a year now. The person who has fought the battles with you, battles that Commissioner Levine Cava has taken up since she got on the commission, very much in support of labor. But the person who's been there for 8.5 years for you in every instance, public sector and private sector. Andy Madison used to be there before Jeff took over, and would call me whenever there was an issue in Miami Beach with hotel workers, or it was a public health trust. Of course, I got a call from Mark Richard on that too. A mayor of the county has to be a leader that supports labor in public and private sector activities. Now, I left my cheat sheet over there, but that's okay. I wanted to remind you that we have great inequality, not only in the private sector, we have great inequality in the public sector. Why does solid waste and transit workers union and WASD and people who do the parks and do our fire and police get paid so little, and the bureaucrats get paid so much? And there's no limit, by the way. My wife is a teacher, and I found out the other day a teacher can never get paid more than $72,000. There's no limit for what bureaucrats can make. And then I couldn't find TWU in there, and I realized they combine you guys at the bottom of the list. I couldn't find you at the bottom of the list. They combine you guys with Public Works. So you average $60-some thousand, in case you didn't know that. Okay? Not for real, of course. Let me just end by saying, besides all the other things we have done wrong, we have mismanaged the county budget enormously by having consultants. When WASD told us that their employees could do a lot of the stuff that we're doing with the water and sewer system, their pipes, pumps, and plants, for God's sake. And then transportation, $300 million. So it's $500 million altogether for consultants. You know who are going to be my consultants if I'm mayor? When I'm the mayor, it'll be the unions. Thank you.
Thank you. So we're going to move into questions, and we'll go this way and then reverse it. 2 minutes. We'll get a 1-minute signal, and we'll start off with general questions and move to working families questions. So Commissioner Bovo, sea level rise allegedly has gone up, or not allegedly, has gone up about 4 inches since 1994. One study from the Center of Climate Integrity claims that Dade County will need $3.2 billion by 2040 to build seawall barriers. If we turn those off again, so we go. They think we're going to need to build 267 miles of seawalls. Question, 2 parts. Do you believe in the science that there is global warming that is connected to human behavior? Let's just lay it out on the table. And what would be one of the first things you would do on day one to address sea level rise in this very, very vulnerable community? Commissioner? Yeah. Now you can turn, how do I turn this off?
Yeah, turn.
Give it to a worker, man.
Okay.
Commissioner Bovo.
All right, thank you for the question, Mark. Yes, I believe that there is a human component that has contributed to the increase of temperature in the globe, and obviously we in Miami-Dade County are at the epicenter of the consequences of that global warming. I think the county has already taken significant steps, and we should continue engaging in this issue. We've begun the process of investing not only in a resiliency officer, but you could basically argue that our entire budget has resiliency components already embedded into it. It is a serious issue. So I think where the areas that we need to perhaps work immediately on is on the issues related to our septic tank and how that affects our quality of water issues, how that affects our coastal lines, beaches, the Bay Area. And I believe, and we should be working hand in hand with the state of Florida to find the solutions. There may be a bill being worked in Tallahassee now that helps us work with families that have septic tanks currently and be able to collect to our water and sewer. Now, it's costly, and I think the county should be looking at ways in A, helping families alleviate that cost because of bigger picture issues for us. In other words, bringing connectivity to their homes. There's a PACE program. I've used it in my house to be able to upgrade the windows in my home and my roof in my home. Perhaps that PACE program could also be part and parcel to help with that connectivity. Not the full rate, obviously. And I think the state of Florida should be able to help. There should be a budget allocation that helps families with septic tank issues that don't have the means to have the connectivity to our water and sewer to be able to do this. I think the long-term implications is, like I said earlier, the impact on our drinking water and the impact on our coast. Now, make no mistake, as this debate continues on, I think the business community needs to be also part of the solution because we have to be mindful that all of this costs money. And radical solutions could be economic, they could be detrimental to our economic development. Thank you.
Yes, thank you. So I've always been an environmentalist at heart, but it took me getting on the commission to see that we were not moving fast enough to address what I consider a true emergency. We're really at the forefront of the world when it comes to assets at risk. In other words, we've built right up to the coastline while the sea is rising. And by the way, in the last month, the Gulf Stream has slowed down significantly, and that's one of the reasons we're seeing high water levels. So this is going to continue. We've done a lot in the county. We've done some studies. We've got a resilience office. I've fought for more resources for that office. but we need to double down. And I am the self-declared water warrior because I think about this, it keeps me up at night. Yes, we have to look at all the dirty waters going into our bay. Our bay is at the point of possibly no return, and that's catastrophic for our recreation and our health. The beaches, of course, under assault because of high levels of bacteria. And our sewage system is dilapidated, and we are not moving rapidly enough to prevent those drastic spills that are spoiling our environment. I've also worked hard to reduce our carbon production because that's a big part of it globally. I've fought for electric vehicles and solar installations on county buildings. In addition to the PACE program that Commissioner Bovo mentions, we have an item coming along to help lower income people afford that kind of infrastructure in their home. It's called SELF, so look for that. And I also have new legislation rolling out very soon about building for resilience that will change the building code. I'm very hopeful to help protect our critical infrastructure. Thank you.
Thank you, Mark. According to people in the industry, this is the #1 existential threat facing South Florida. And as a leader, we're not out to play around with the threat. We need to plan accordingly and make sound decisions that solve the problem. That's exactly why, as a small business owner, whenever people talk about these major risks, I see an opportunity. This is an issue I've been learning about recently, and what I think would be part of the solution is first, rename, as I recently proposed to the County Commission, the Department of Resiliency, the Department of Resiliency and Decarbonization. Because the real threat is carbon emission. That's the real thing affecting us. Second, we must adequately fund that department. We must make it the business of every county department to address this issue and incentivize department heads for reaching their goal. These are some of the things that we should do to start addressing this issue and solve the problem before, because we can't leave it to our next generation to solve it for us.
Mark, yes, in fact, I am a science believer. But you know what, I don't think it's just about building seawalls. We have a water and sewer system that is literally crumbling right below our feet. We have serious issues with saltwater infiltration into our drinking waters. We have stormwater infiltration into our sanitation treatment system. We have to make a major investment in that infrastructure. The first thing I would do as mayor is address this comprehensively. This is one of the many issues where we have just been kicking the can down the road. We've been leaving. It's almost as if we'll let someone else handle this. Let's wait for the next administration to come in. We need to have a comprehensive system. Yes, it may include state revenues. It's going to require federal revenues. And yes, it may require additional local revenues. But we need to deal with this comprehensively and not piecemeal like we've been doing for the last decade.
I'm not going to imitate him this time. I'm not going to stand up. I was running for this seat in 2011, and then in a debate, the opponent said, we've got to do something about carbon monoxide. And I said, Mr. Moderator, I think he's talking about carbon dioxide. If he's talking about carbon monoxide, we'd all be dead by now. So you got to know your stats, you got to know your figures. Commissioner Levine Cava is 100% right. The Gulf Stream had slowed down maybe 15%. You know what happens to a fluid when it slows down, it rises. We probably have twice as much sea level rise as, let's say, Key West, even some places close to Key West. The national norm is 3 millimeters per year. We've had 5.9 inches in this area in 23 years. So we're headed towards as much as 2 feet in a century, but it could be more than that. And we have to tackle it. And yes, I believe that it's carbon dioxide is a big factor, and obviously fossil fuel plants produce a lot of that. One of the things we need to do is what Commissioner Levine Cava and I are trying to do, which is affordable housing should have solar energy. And there are going to be some opposition from certain people who have utilities, without naming names. There's one big one that we all know about. But it should be more than that. It should be more than that. On 27th Avenue and US 1, a couple of developers are building a transit-oriented development. They want to put a microgrid there that will pick up solar energy, but you can't sell it to the neighbors. So we're stuck until we change the Constitution of the state of Florida, and I support that amendment to provide so that if we build our own solar energy sources, we can sell to the neighborhood and to others. And you'll have my support on that. One final thing is, I'm out of time.
Melody says time, but you're out of time. Let me start going this way. X, hold on to the microphone. You and Alex have been mayors before, and the others have all had a great career on the commission. This is an $8 billion enterprise with 28,000 employees. Neither one of you were there when it was strong mayor, right? And the city of Miami is still not strong mayor. What makes each of you qualified to run an $8 billion business, public service, NGO, and be the boss of 28,000 employees? Why are you qualified?
Well, it's actually closer to 9 billion. So part of the trick is to know the models that the bureaucrats use, because they try to confuse you. If you look at the budget, I published the budget of the IT department. You know what it has for the source of revenue for a department that has a $211 million budget? It's got less than $1 million in general funds. Well, how can that be? The rest of it is interagency transfers. So the rest of all the other departments are having to pay the bureaucrats. So the first thing you got to do is you got to know the models. You got to know what they're up to. With the 5%, I told you what I did. I clarified that it wasn't 5% of the healthcare premiums that you were supposed to pay. You were going to pay 5% of your entire compensation. There is much streamlining to be done in the county. They will resist it. They will continue telling us to put a major transit station in Aventura at a cost of $76 million when the SMART plan has not been implemented at all. Today in fiscal priorities, we were talking about trying to do something about the North Corridor. We, under Chairman Monestime, passed a resolution that said the North Corridor was going to be first in funding. Instead, they convinced us to do a transit station. And what I did is the day before, I published free sites that could be acquired that were big enough for that transit station so we wouldn't have to pay $19 million. And I sent that. The bureaucrats are deaf, but they will hear when I'm the county mayor, I guarantee you.
Alex?
Mark, I feel I'm uniquely qualified for several reasons. First of all, I could hit the ground running. I served in this position, albeit executive mayor, from 1996 to 2004. I dealt with 22 hurricanes. I dealt with other moments of crisis, Gianni Versace and Andrew Cunanan, fine air crash. I helped lead this community during very, very difficult times and learned a lot. And I've matured a lot, and those experiences, I think, make me uniquely qualified, especially when you're looking at 6, maybe 8 brand new county commissioners. So you want your leader to know exactly how the system works and to work to implement change from day one. What also makes me, I think, uniquely qualified is the fact that I've had an equally rewarding, now 16-year experience in the private sector. I've run businesses. I've made a lot of money, and I lost a lot of money. And that teaches an invaluable experience. Finally, I think I'm uniquely qualified because I have no interest in a political comeback. That's not why I'm doing. This is not, for me, about politics. I served as mayor. I'm doing this because I love this community. I'm doing this because I think It's time for me to give back. This community has been very good to me and my family, and that is very liberating. It's very liberating. It will allow me to basically just do what I think is right and not have to be concerned with the next election, whether I'm reelected. This is not a political step for me. So I think for all those reasons and many others, I'm uniquely qualified at this particular moment to lead Miami-Dade County again.
I'll stand up for this one, Mike. I think my answer to the question is that one needs vision and discipline in order to lead our county. Vision because you need to know where you're taking this county. Discipline because you are responsible, you know how to build a relationship, and you know how to manage. And these need discipline. The truth of the matter, and the one thing that makes me qualified for this position, Mark, is that I am better prepared for this job today than both Xavier and Alex were when they became mayor. I'm better prepared than they were at the time. Okay, so one thing I think the next mayor should do is address this county's problem, not just from a local perspective, but from a regional perspective. One thing I promise that I'm going to do is to become a partner with labor in all my endeavors. I will create and put together a labor council to sit at the table on every major decisions that I make. And because labor must be my partner as a county government, I will consult with labor on every director that is hired at the county that will impact workers. Because unless we end this together, we will not move our county forward. And we need, as a leader, I will leave the management of our county to the professionals and offer a vision that surely help Miami-Dade County residents to feel that they need to be able to live here, work here, and prosper here.
Thank you.
Well, I'm going to stand as well. So, we live in very dangerous times. We are facing incredible challenges right now today in Miami-Dade County, and we do not need status quo thinking. We do have expertise in the county. We have great people working hard, but we need a bold new vision. We need to draw from the best practices around the country and the world. We need to bring the community together in collaboration to get these things done. Yes, we need to think regionally. In South Florida, we need to think regionally in this country, and we are a global center. We need to do so much more to bring people in to solving these problems with us. That's my history. That's what I've always done. I'm the person that listens and learns, brings people together, and I have also started hundreds of organizations through my work in capacity building with small businesses in the nonprofit sector. I ran the foster care system here in Miami-Dade County, and I'm very familiar with the challenges working in a bureaucracy, not only at the county, but at the state level. So, as mayor, I'll be bringing innovation to the office. I'll be putting these critical future considerations to work in my cabinet. We have great people, but if they're status quo focused, then they are not going to be part of the new administration. So with me, you get experience, you get vision, integrity, and results, and I am ready. Thank you.
Steve?
I said earlier that Miami-Dade County will be at a crossroad, and I feel uniquely qualified to be able to lead us as we meet the challenges that the crossroad brings to us. What I will never do and won't do it here and won't do it at any other forum that you may see me at, is pander to the audience in order to get an applause or get their approval. We have a balancing act that we need to accomplish. There are tax residents out there, folks that pay. Many of you that own homes and own businesses pay for all the county services. And what I will not do is say one thing here and say one thing in another forum. We need to be able to balance both those as we move forward. We have significant challenges in Miami-Dade County. And one of the reasons that these challenges become so costly is because government has been accessed by those that peddle influence. There are many who have sold our government to the highest bidders in order to get the contracts that they want and move the county in the directions that they want. And I will tell you, and you can look at my record, I can't be bought, I can't be purchased, I can't be influenced. We will do what is the right thing for our county. I am not fearful of having conversations that are uncomfortable. But what we will not do, and what we should not do, is go back to the past century's way of doing things and go backwards. We need to move forward. And all the issues in front of us require common sense and transparency. And if I'm the mayor of this county, I guarantee you, if anything, those two things, common sense and transparency. Thank you.
So I'm going to go back this way. Not every question will be for all of us, but Steve, we want to ask you this. What do you think is the I've been representing transit since 1983 here. I would say, generally speaking, every major promise has been broken. And I travel, I have a place in Washington. It's just one of the worst transit messes of any metropolitan area in the country. What is the biggest mistake you think we've made as a county government with regards to mass transit? Or a biggest mistake?
2 minutes on that?
We don't want to hear promises. We want to know what we've done wrong. By the way, we put one out, putting someone in charge of the agency who has no experience. But we'll leave that for another day. Go ahead.
All right. So I'll leave that for some others. I think that fundamentally, where it starts was that the half penny was a bold-faced lie to the residents of Miami-Dade County. It was not going to solve all the issues that were promised. It could not deliver Metro Rail through our entire county, buy buses, provide free Metro Mover, give 20% to the cities, give seniors and patriots free access. It could not do it. And many residents in our community have fallen on that foundation believing that was going to be the end all. And we knew right out of the chute that the federal government, when they asked the simple question, how you're going to maintain and operate the North Corridor, the county did not have an answer. Now that does not absolve the commission and the mistakes that the commission made. Before I got there in 2011, the commission made a critical error in combining, similar to Florida lottery education money, commingling money that doomed that half penny forever being able to be the only way we pay for transit. Now, what we've done since we've been on the board is create other mechanisms that do not raise your taxes, that incentivizes development, TODs, names corridors, takes the value of those corridors, and it helps pay for future transit. And I have said this often, we will not be able to move the major divide in our issues on transit if there's not a dialogue between public and private opportunities. That does not mean labor gets left behind. On the contrary, it should be. And we've had meetings with labor when I was chair of my office that we should be collaborating in ways that we fulfill this vision. Because left to others, what you will have is perhaps automated systems that have no labor components whatsoever, or the possibility of not doing anything. I'm sorry. Okay.
Daniella?
Every meeting becomes a transportation meeting, right? That's how it goes. Look, half penny was a big promise, and it's underperformed because it was overpromised. And these kinds of promises erode everyone's confidence, not just in transit, but in everything that government does. And that's why I'm in politics, because we've got to get it right. Our democracy is too important for us to not tell the public the truth. We've got to be truthful. Today we were talking about the North Corridor in one of my committee meetings, and I was doubling down. What's the truth? What's the timeline? What's the cost? How are we going to pay for it? Let's not lie to people once again. So we have underfunded basic transit services for decades, and we are bleeding ridership. And while we've been coming up with a great, glorious plan for 6 transit corridors, and I'm a believer in the SMART plan, we have sacrificed the people that every day depend on transit for jobs. You know, many employers will not hire people if they say they're dependent upon transit. That is shameful. So we can't just depend on the fare box. We have to invest in transit. We have the Better Bus Project. Hopefully that will yield some improvements, but we must get our choice riders. Those are the people that have to give up their cars. We can't build highways to solve this traffic problem. We have to have a world-class transit system, and we have to put in the resources to make it happen.
Commissioner Monestime, Commissioner Bovo raised the issue that folks have, maybe paraphrasing wrongly, but a disproportionate influence over County Hall through contributions through consultants. Loopholes have come out where you cannot register as a lobbyist but come in as a communications official. The same group of very good friends of ours that we know, 20, 30 folks, have incredible influence because they contributions too. What would you do to clean this up? If it's a problem, how do we make sure that consultants can still have a role, businesses have a role, but working families have a role, and we can't write the same checks they write? How would you fix it?
Well, I'm doing something right now to fix it, Mark, because everyone has access to my office. Everyone. I think a lobbyist, labor member, neighborhood representative, or any resident of the same access to my office. Anybody who knows my reputation in this county commission knows that anyone can set an appointment in my office. So, and again, let me remind everybody, I believe on the county commission, I'm the only person who's not wealthy that wakes up every day to go to work. Independently, that don't have a job. I work for myself as a real estate broker, and I run an insurance business. So, to answer your question, I think what we need to do, if we have any suspicion of anything that's happening that's wrong, we need to let the county attorney's office know. We need to empower the Commission on Ethics to go after anyone who's doing anything illegal or inappropriate, because it's easy to throw things out there, but if we know something is wrong, help the power that be go after that. Did you want me to answer the question about transit as well?
That's okay. We'll go on to that.
We'll go on to
Thank
that.
you. Let me ask you this, Alex. I think maybe some of that was aimed at you. We worked on the half penny. Was it missold or was it misused?
Well, I think this is going to be one of the really defining issues in this campaign. I find it very interesting that some of the very same individuals who have been consistently voting to misspend that money for the last 8, 9, 10 years now have this very convenient political narrative that would suggest that a campaign that they had nothing to do with was overpromised. Let me give a little bit of a history lesson. When I arrived in the county in 1990, the number one priority in this community was to have a dedicated funding source for transportation market. You'll remember that. Why? Because all the money was going to Denver, it was going to the Big Dig in Boston, it was going to New York. Guess where it wasn't coming? It wasn't coming here. And the dedicated funding source, I first tried the full penny in 99, it failed, yet I had the political courage and vision to come back and do it again. The half penny was not meant to pay for all the items on the list. It was meant to match state and federal money. And the fact that subsequent commissions and administrations have used that money to fill budget holes and deficits in our community, I think is unforgivable. Unforgivable. and I'm happy to debate that issue anywhere, any day, with anyone on this dais, because I had the courage, like I said, the vision. The transportation mess we have today, I foresaw 20 years ago, but I had the courage to do something about it. We need to stop all this talk, and we need to actually do things. This $76 million giveaway to Aventura for a private company, that's exactly what we should not be doing. I'm all for public-private partnerships, Mark, but a $20 round-trip ride is not what I would refer to as public or commuter transportation.
Commissioner Suarez, we all believe, because we pay taxes as union members and working families, that no tax dollar should be wasted. We also believe that taxes shouldn't be higher than they need to be. But what we've seen in a long time is this no tax increases has become a religion to put all the sacrifices on our family backs. Are you running by saying there will never be a tax increase if it is needed? Or are you saying, what are you saying? What's your position about tax increases and looking the public in the eye and running on a campaign that says if we need it and it's well spent, I will ask for it?
Well, things are getting a little hot up here, so I'm going to stand up.
Get him some cold water.
Something interesting happened. Right after I was elected, they said we have to close half the libraries down because, you know, if we keep the millage rate the same, we can't maintain all the libraries that we have. And I said, well, how can that be? You know, the valuation has gone up. And so if we keep the millage rate the same as last year, we should be able to run the libraries, maybe a little tighten our belt a little bit, but that's about it. It turned out that they had reduced the millage rate from 0.48 to 0.17 in a couple of years, and they used up the reserves from the prior years. Kind of like what they did with WASD, when they took $25 million a year water and sewer to apply to other departments because of the misspending that Commissioner Pinellas, whether he did it right or did it wrong, the fact of the matter is we have received from the half cent, folks, we have received $3.4 billion. And we have built 2.4 miles of the 89 miles of mass transit that we were supposed to build. You might call it over-promising, but it's certainly underperforming, okay? And we have to change that. And I have said that we can pledge right now $100 million from the half cent and $100 million from the MDX, from the excess revenues of the money that we pay with our tolls. And with that and a multiplier of 18:1, you can fund the entire SMART plan that Commissioner Monestime and some other members of the commission, and I guess Daniella too, I think she was already with us at the time. So we can do it, folks, and I forgot what the question was, but I want to tell you, I appreciate the fact that you call me X, because I want to tell everybody.
Of course I call you.
That's my nickname, X-Man, and my email is Xavier Suarez, ESQ at AOL, okay? And you can ask me any more questions you want when she calls me for time. Thank you.
So Steve, let me start here and answer the same question. Some folks have run for government, attacking the very government they run for. Running for office to lead government at the same time saying, I'm against government. What do you think the role of government is in Dade County and the role of well-spent taxes, including tax increases?
I think the fundamental role of government is to provide the services that I, as a taxpayer and a resident, expect them to provide. Police, fire, water and sewer, adequate transit program. I think that's what I expect government to do. But many times, many of us want to turn government into a social experiment and perhaps go out on things that are further away from the bullseye and the core of what I think government is designed to do. And this happens repeatedly over and over and over again. But I would be remiss if comments that just were made just go by the wayside. Let me tell you, we could have revisionist history all we want. And I was involved back when the half penny was being debated. I was campaigning against it because I knew it couldn't fulfill the promises that it could, everything that was being promised. And many of you, we could have revisionist history, but we were promising, they were promising Metro Rail throughout this county. By now, we would have expected Metro Rail at every point in the county. And it wasn't going to happen. They knew it back then. The report showed it. All the analysis showed it. But it was more politically expedient to do it. Now, what we should be doing and insisting on our government, and what many of you help us provide, is that those core services are done to the best of our abilities. And the more and more government gets into areas that should not be our role is where we run into the danger. Perhaps that's one of the reasons that you don't see in maintenance on some of our transit systems that we should be maintaining. Because instead we're spending money on items that perhaps are not wise to spend on. Now, we found ourselves in a challenge specifically in transit, and why have we had to become more creative with transit is because that half penny was never going to be enough. Despite what Commissioner Suarez says, who while he served on the board has never really offered any solution to do these things, the reality of the situation is we just never had enough money to do it. Thank you.
Let me ask a different question for all of you that started.
I was ready to answer that question.
Go ahead.
Thank you. Well, I'm going to go back to vision, integrity, and results. First of all, yes, there are basics, but this place at the crossroads needs a powerful vision. This is not just about business as usual. So what do I feel the role of government is? I feel the role of government is to lead us into the future. So that is what I plan to do. Now, as far as integrity, we've already passed, and it was kicking and screaming, legislation I brought to make campaign finance more transparent. So now donations to PACs or political committees have to be reported, and the Miami Herald thanks me. Makes their job a lot easier. But the point is the public needs to know. The public has a right to know. Okay, bundle money, but where did it come from, right? So that's what we've done with transparency. But at the end of the day, government is about customer service. People are paying for the basics, and we do not treat the public like customers. We treat them like they should be grateful for what they get, and that is not acceptable. And as mayor, I will work hard to transform the culture that we have in County Hall. And I know those of you who are working hard, that's not who you are, because you stand for integrity too. But for many, it is not the norm, and the public feels it keenly. So by being always available, we can help restore good customer service and trust in our local government. Thank you.
So this question's for all of you. There are multiple unions at the county, been bargaining there since '83, and there have been different approaches and different styles, and we understand you have to bargain. But some would say the last years have seen concerted attempts to pit union against union, concerted attempts to have people with influence affect the healthcare insurance choices, to quite honestly have some bullying at the bargaining table, and to have some normally good folks be directed to be obstinate, and it's been incredibly difficult for some of the unions, incredibly difficult. A collective bargaining agreement is about health care for our families. It's about a wage increase for a whaler. It's about what our future looks like, a pension where you can live and not worry about paying your donor hole when you're at 20, Medicare. These are about working class people doing the everyday jobs. But when it comes to bargaining, it's about union bosses and something we're doing. What's going to be your negotiation style at the bargaining table for our unions? To each of you, 1 minute, please.
First, question, Mark. Honestly, on the question of influence peddling, you look at everybody's campaign account, and you can tell who's giving a whole lot of money to a lot of people. So I'm the one here without a fat campaign account, as simple as that. Because at the end of the day, I want to be able to represent everybody. And second, on the issue of transit, Mark, when I became chairman of the board, the MPO. Remember those articles in the Herald, on the paper that we no longer need an MPO? Okay, I solved that problem by demonstrating leadership. And and putting the smart plan together that Commissioner Suarez just spoke about. About labor. Hey, in my prior statement, I said it. I didn't study political science. I went to business school. On every transaction, on every decision making, you need to know who your partner is going to be. You need to know who you're going to leverage. For this reason, as a county mayor, I say I'm going to partner with labor. I'm going to put together a labor council which allows them to be at the table and give feedback on every decision I'll be making. And by the way, there's a prototype for what I'm saying. Remember what the conversation used to be about Jackson before Migoya became the CEO there. It was always a fight. But he made SEIU at Jackson his partner. For every time he came before the board for a decision, labor has been on board with them. And that's exactly why right now we have a Jackson that is in the black and not in the red. I've made my decision already. I think it's a sound decision. For the many labor organizations that are part of the county family, we can't do this in the mayor's office alone. I want you at the table. I'm asking you today, after you make me your mayor, that I will consult with you on every decision that will be affecting you, just as I consult with people around me and my business for every decision that I'm making, because it's affecting them daily. Thank you so very much.
Alex, what will be your bargaining style at the labor negotiations table?
You know, Mark, I think the mayor's role is to be a leader, someone with a vision, and someone who puts individuals around himself who can implement that vision. A mayor should also be someone who motivates workers, management, everyone, each and every day to work hard to implement that vision. But to do so, you need to be fair with your workers. That would be my standard. It's about fairness. I'm very proud that the years that I was at the county, we were fair to our workers. There were annual pay raises. We had cost of living adjustments. These are different times. And I'm not here to suggest that what happened then can happen again now, but we must be fair. And we have to strike that delicate balance between our taxpayers, the needs we have in the community, with the folks who get up every morning and go to work. That's the delicate balance we have to strike. To pit one bargaining unit against another, that to me is not acceptable. It is absolutely not acceptable. But the message has to come from the mayor. Again, remember, the mayor is the strong mayor. The mayor of the county is responsible for a $9 billion budget, directly responsible for 26,000 employees. The vision has to come from the top. And those who are negotiating on behalf of the mayor and the administration have to understand that vision and be willing to implement it. So for me, it would be a very simple standard, and that would be one of fairness.
Thank you. Commissioner Suarez?
I'll tell you an interesting story that happened to me when I started looking at the medical plan of the county. It turns out that we contribute $14,000 per year for each of the 25,000 employees that are part of the system. And I started making some inquiries. This is all going to a private company, of course, who handles it for us as TPA, third-party administrator. So I made an inquiry. What is the average age of the 25,000 of you and me, by the way? I'm included in that plan, that are in that plan. And the HR people said, why does the commissioner want to know that? You don't want to know the average age when Medicaid per capita per month is like $300 or $400. Medicare is like $1,400 per month. So it's a big difference, the average age. It's 47 years old. We promised you, the unions, about 5 years ago, that we were going to work with you to figure out a way to return some of that money back to you. And we haven't delivered on it. We have not delivered on it. We have not brought you into that. And we have 1/3 of 1% of those 25,000 using our system which is now a network that covers the entire county. Tell me, if I get together with the 10 unions, and of course with the Public Health Trust, that we can't come up with a system that returns some of that money to you. I'm sure we can do it and increase your compensation. By the way, I didn't finish the last question because I had forgotten it by the time I got to the end. But on raising taxes, you know what I did on the library millage rate? I said, we need to raise the millage rate. And everybody said, oh my God, there's a commissioner that's wanting to raise taxes. Well, guess what? We ended up with 8 or 9 people that signed up for that because I had the courage to do that publicly. So a commissioner and the mayor, if absolutely needed, has to be willing to raise taxes on occasion, though I'm not promising to do it in this case because we have a lot of streamlining to do. Thank you.
Thank you. Would, Commissioner Bovo and Commissioner Levine, would you answer the question of what your bargaining style is going to be?
Thank you, Mark. What it won't be driven by personalities and antagonistic situation that we see on times. I don't know if I can speak for my colleagues on the board, but I know for us it's bothersome to know that, for example, the transit union is still out and hasn't sat down with the mayor, and it becomes personal. I see it in the city of Hialeah now, where the fire department and the mayor seems not to be working in the best interests, perhaps, of the residents and the rank and file, but on who's got the biggest one, right? And that's a problem. That's a problem because I think the best way of moving forward is, number one, respect the role of the labor leaders. They have a job to do. You need to respect that, and you have to understand that they're bringing messages forward from their rank and file. And on the flip side, obviously, the administration has to represent the investors, the taxpayer, and we have to find a happy medium that we could provide the services that all our residents depend on. What it can't be, and I've seen it happen too many times. When I was in the city of Hialeah, I've seen it now at the commission, and in reality, a lot of times the legislative part is hamstrung, is not to allow it to become personal. We need to be able to move our negotiations forward without having a union member come to the board and take a swipe at the mayor and vice versa. It shouldn't happen. You should never be before us in an antagonistic position. Just simply, these are the facts, and let's move forward on. And that's what I would aspire, and that's what I would expect of anybody working under my administration.
Danielle?
Well, I'm a lawyer and a social worker, and I bring those skills to everything that I do. There's a lot of heart in law, but certainly in social work, and I have been really unhappy with some of the results of the bargaining process that I've seen. I don't know if it's personal, but it sure looks like retaliation on occasion, and that has really offended me, and also lack of transparency about what are the terms and across the different unions. So I would not stand for that. I'll say beyond fair, equitable. I'm looking for equity in the bargaining process. But you know, we have right now inequality, lack of equity between those receiving contracts from the county, protected by our living wage ordinance, and county employees who are still working indefinitely as part-time employees without paid benefits, without paid leave, without paid holidays. I don't understand that. Fred, what did we do wrong when we brought this legislation that we didn't close that loophole? I've brought this up time and time again. I'm told it's a big figure to close the gap, but every year I've fought for the restoration of full-time positions because it is wrong. It's wrong for the contractors. It's wrong for the county. Thank you.
Gene, Commissioner Monestime, when we contract out services beyond the responsible employer ordinance that we all worked on, what role do you think the county should play in that contracting out to make sure that not only those folks have health insurance, but retirement, and the ability to vote in or vote not to vote for a union, and not be intimidated not to have a union, so that if there's an incentive to put turnkey operations out to corporations that don't want a union, don't want a pension, want to have lower health insurance? What would you do to make sure there's an even playing field when county public dollars go into the private sector?
Well, first of all, it should be a very difficult decision before the mayor of a county propose or suggest that our public dollars go to a private company. That's exactly often I take a very strong stance against that. But in terms of contracting opportunity, there must be equity. There must be equity, there must be fairness. There must be an opportunity for a smaller company to graduate. There must be, the leadership must come out of the mayor's office. The leadership must come out of the mayor's office. Look, a part of who we are evolves from the experience we grew up with. I speak so strongly about building a middle class, about strengthening working families, because I know how hard and how tough it is to not be able to make ends meet. I know how tough it is to have to manage a small business and be late on your rent all the time. I know how tough it is to not be able to pay your bill at the end of the week because you live paycheck to paycheck. Therefore, somebody has to bring all that experience and all that vulnerability to the mayor's office. If you're going to be fair, these are the things that's going to help you be fair, because you live through this situation. In no society, Mark, will succeed without a strong middle class. That's exactly why I pray every day that I have the energy and the courage to continue to fight so that the American dream endures. Because at the end of the day, if we don't help sustain our people financially, we're going to continue to deal with the issue of housing, of mass transit, of climate change, with violence in our community, because all these things are byproducts of your financial standing. And we need to address them head on. Thank you.
Alex, what about public support of sports arenas and teams and soccer teams? Where do we draw the line of economic growth versus subsidization?
I do believe that big events like Super Bowls, World Series, do add to the value of a community, the attractiveness of the community. I think there needs to be a return on investment, however. For example, the most recent agreement between the Dolphin Stadium and the county, I think that was a good one. It was based on performance. If a Super Bowl comes to the community, there's a certain payment made to help subsidize the cost of bringing that event. If there is a semifinal game for the NCAA football championship, there's a different layered payment. These are all events that I think add to our community, and it adds to our attractiveness and creates thousands and thousands of jobs. Something I know well, I mentioned earlier, my father was a member of 355. I remember when Super Bowls, regularly came to Miami. I remember what that meant for working class people. So I just think it needs to be the right balance.
Good. Commissioner Suarez, prevailing wages. When we build projects around the community, we believe in not dragging people down to the lowest wage you can pay, but trying to go to the prevailing wages set by Davis-Bacon and other indices. That should be what the unions have been able to garner so we can have a family and raise our kids to go to Miami-Dade College. Where's your position on prevailing wages?
I'm going to try to combine the three questions you've asked different members of this debating team here. You asked about contracting out county services. And this is a great example of what we could be doing. What I said on the dais, it scared a few people, and they were surprised by what I said. But here's what I said. I said we had 3,500 employees that work for us at the airport, okay? And we had 35,000 that rent their services to the airport. Some of those things we could do ourselves. I called it reverse privatization. Everyone went like, exclaimed, reverse privatization, that sounds like the S word, right? So, but it's very simple. It means that we can do a lot of those services, and if they don't pay a prevailing wage, and if they're not fair to their employees, as they were not being, we can take that route. On the sports scene, I have to disagree with Commissioner Pinellas. The deal for the Dolphin Stadium for a retractable roof using funds that were put in the legislature, were put by the legislature into play, the bed tax, to obtain new franchises, did not make any sense, but they played a very nice shell game. They first said, we want $200 million, or we won't have a retractable roof, or we won't get Super Bowls, which is nonsense. They'd love to come down here for the Super Bowl. I mean, let's face it. We've had more than any other city over the last 20 or 30 years without a retractable roof. But then they played the shell game. They said, we need $200 million for that. And then they reduced that to about $80 million. I still voted against it. And we're still getting the Super Bowl. And then your third point had to do with, I forget. Prevailing wages. I already handled that. So I guess I wrapped them all up into one.
The third question is, can any of you make sure that all of our teams, which really stink right now, are going to be doing better? The Marlins, the Heat, the Dolphins, the Kings. What do we,
I play a pretty good shortstop, and I'm a pretty good point guard, but I don't like to get hit when we play football. So
we're holding the mayor responsible for the playoffs. Women's soccer. So, one last question for all of you, and we're looking for as much granularity as you can put in it. We've had a lot of great leaders and a lot of great relationships, and we've also had a lot of broken hearts as working families and union leaders. All our union presidents come from the rank and file. They turn the wrenches, they drive that bus, they insert the IV needle in the patient getting chemotherapy at Jackson. These are the salt of the earth. These are folks that want a little fence around their house, car, and get their kid through school and to have a future. How do we really know from your heart and soul that if you're the next mayor, this wasn't all lip service, and that you're going to be there for us in real ways? And I'll go reverse and start with Commissioner Suarez.
There are 4,283 county employees that don't do any of the things you said. They also happen to be the ones that get paid the most. Who has stood up to those folks time and again? Xavier Suarez, who's been the only one that told the mayor, no, we don't have the 5% because we have a $200 million deficit. And I said that is, well, I can't say the word that I said in private, but that is a bold-faced lie. And sure enough, the money was found and we gave you the 5% because I stood up to those folks and to the bureaucrats with all their models. Part of the reason is I know all those quantitative models, and I can argue with them, and perhaps some of the other ones on this board also have that ability, but maybe they don't show it as I have done. I've even taken the mayor to the point of filing suit against the county. And of course, as Mr. Hanks covered it, he said I engineered the suit. In any case, the mayor took me to the ethics commission on that, and of course they dismissed it. I was trying to do what is good for the people of Miami-Dade County. And it had to do with the misspending of the $100 million that he says are needed every year to balance the budget. A budget that is now close to $9 billion. And it has so much. A current example where if I had known about it, if it had been put to a vote, I would have voted against it. $3.3 million to provide security at County Hall? What, are they afraid they're going to kill us, guys? Half of us are leaving anyhow. And next year, they don't have to kill us. They'll get rid of us. Frankly, I think I know most of you that are here in this room, and I've worked with most of you. By now, you know who is a friend of labor. By now, you know who is willing to fight it out with the bureaucrats. One thing that we did too improperly is executive sessions where they give us all these numbers and then they tell us we can't talk about it. And Commissioner Barbara Jordan and I stood up against the mayor on that.
Thank you.
Mark, I didn't come here to give lip service. Like I said before, I'm at a stage in my life where I really don't need to do this. So I'm going to tell people just what I feel and how I feel. On the issue of treating workers fairly, just look at my record. I grew up in a labor household. Like I said before, I would go to roll call with my father on Saturday mornings and hope and pray that his number was called because we depended on that banquet at the Fontainebleau or at the Sheraton, wherever it was, to make ends meet. And thanks to that opportunity, My parents were able to buy their first home in Hialeah on West 60th Street. So I get it. And I think the other reason it's not lip service is just look at my record. When I was mayor, we were very fair to our employees. People were happy. Morale was high. People were excited about going to work every day. That's not the case now. Everywhere I go, that's what I hear over and over and over again. We're not excited about the leadership of this county. We're not being treated fairly. We're giving things away to the private sector. That's what I hear. Right or wrong, that's what I hear every day when I go out into the community. So it's not about lip service. Now, having said that, we've got to balance things. This is not a giveaway either. We just can't give things away. We've got to run a business. Miami-Dade County is a $9 billion business. I've run businesses. And eventually, what you will have to decide is who is most credentialed, most qualified to run a $9 billion business. That's the most important decision I think voters are going to have to make.
Mr. Morrison.
Mark, my first answer is that the next mayor of our county must be a unifier, not a divider. You need endeavor to bring people together. And the county employees, union members, and leaders are part of our family. Families that close together know how to treat each other well. And therefore, again, I believe it's about building relationship. It's about ensuring that we all do well. When we have our union members, at the table with us, as mayor, I want to look at myself in their shoes when I'm negotiating with them. It could have been them, one of them being mayor, and I could have been the labor person that they negotiate, on whose behalf they are negotiating. I remember these days when I used to wait in line to get a union job. I wasn't qualified enough, I never got one. Why I did that is because I knew and I understand at the time they got better paid than the other jobs. And that is important. That was important. I was 18, 19 years old seeking those jobs. And again, if we're not doing well as a family, we won't be able, when I say as a county family, we won't really be able to take care of our customers well. So if the mayor's office work together with all the 28,000 employees that we have, and we work as a team, that energy is going to be felt in the entire community. And again, what I will do is seeing myself as one of them, and I am one of them. Why? Because I struggle every day, just like everybody that works in a job at the county. Thank you so very much.
Daniella.
My entire career, 38 years in Miami-Dade County, has been dedicated to building a community and an economy that will work for everyone. I ran the foster care program here in Miami-Dade, the Guardian Ad Litem program. I worked at Legal Services of Greater Miami, representing people, everyday people, to get the basics, to prevent eviction, to get the programs and services they needed just to get by. I started a nonprofit organization, Human Services Coalition, now Catalyst Miami, to take that to the next level. And 24 years later, it's the apple of my eye. It's a groundbreaking, innovative nonprofit doing so much to build leadership. And there's some graduates right here today for the Housing Advocacy Program. So proud. Thank you. As County Commissioner, I've championed equal pay for women. Contracts now are required to guarantee it. I've fought for living wage at the airport and everywhere, and increased the level having to do with the increased healthcare costs, thanks to this gentleman who led that effort. We built a prosperity action plan, and out of that there are going to be children's savings accounts for every child starting kindergarten in Miami public schools starting this year. We've increased the living wage. We've brought labor peace to numerous contracts. And as mayor, this is what I will continue. But the affordability crisis today is legendary. It is just so upsetting and frustrating. We must do more. This has been my career. I'm 64. I'm a born-again politician, and I'm here because I have a calling to get it right. Thank you very much.
This is the last question. Not the last.
Okay, all right, wasn't sure. I believe your question was, is what we say here, are we sincere to it? And look, my track record, I think, since I've been in elected capacity, whether it was a city council, Hialeah, the state legislature, or now in the county commission, is that I've always had an open door policy. I've always engaged conversations with all those, whether we agree or disagree. I've maintained myself very open and honest, and what I say publicly, I say behind closed doors. And I will continue with that same trajectory. I've said repeatedly and many times, there's a balancing act between the service we need to provide and those who provide it, and those who pay for it. And in many instances, it's one and the same thing, because many of you are homeowners or business owners. And I think that's something that we need to aspire to. We need to make sure that our elected officials are doing what they say they're going to do. One of the most prideful things that I could tell you once I got onto the Board of County Commission that we were able to accomplish was term limits. The reason that you're going to see enough evil on the Board of County Commission and a complete turnover, which I think is a good thing, to be perfectly honest with you, is because of term limits, that I not only wrote the legislation and we took it to the voters who had been waiting for it for years. And the Board of County Commission up to that point had been hesitant. They tried other gimmicks of passing term limits until it was straight up and clean for the voters. And I think what is in the best interest of moving our government forward and not backwards is where we should be working at. And if I'm your mayor, I will continue to work in that same vein. I will not say something publicly and something differently behind closed doors. And many of you have come to visit me over the years, know exactly that I basically live by that model so that we could make sure that we never misunderstand each other. Thank you.